My name is Bert Van Leeuwen. I'm from the company NetHNL. I'll be giving this presentation with two hats on, or more specifically, a hat and a helmet. I'm going to talk to you about emergency response using real-time semantic web technology. And the hat is NetH, my own company. We're together with a few people doing information management for 17 years already, and the last 12 years we have several software projects inside the fire departments. In the last 3 years we've been working on this product with the Fire Department Amsterdam. The other hat, or the helmet, is that I'm a professional firefighter in the city of Amsterdam since 2001, and I had several volunteer positions before. I'm based in the city center, close to where all the famous touristic attractions are. So I'm going to take you a bit on my journey, and I'll explain to you why these things come together. So if I look from this information management perspective to an incident, I could draw something like this, graph of bits and pieces of information. If I take my firefighter hat or helmet and look at the same incident, it looks like this. Just to make sure that you see that it's the same, it's like clearly the same. So what brings these two things together? My fear. And that's a bit strange maybe, that there's a firefighter at a conference who's afraid. But my fear is that something will happen to me or either one of my colleagues. And afterwards we will figure out that all the information we needed to know to prevent this accident from happening was either known in our own organization or that of our partners. So somebody reads the report afterwards, raises his finger and says, okay, I knew about that. That is a pretty bold statement to make. And when I went to the Board of Commanders of the City of Amsterdam and made that statement, I was actually afraid that they would sort of send me away, or they would dismiss me. To my big surprise, some high-ranking officers said, don't be afraid. Be assured that it's like this. You guys go to places you should not go to, and we have no means of telling you that. So I was actually shocked by that statement. So how did I come to realize that the way we get information is actually not completely right? So what we do as fire department. This is my most heroic moment of 2011. What you see here is a wounded seagull on the ice. We save humans and animals. And I'm trying to rescue that there in the ladder from the ice. And as you can see in the background, my colleagues trying to hit me with snowballs. This is a bit more serious work. This is me in the lower right corner, waiting to enter this fairly standard fire to Amsterdam measures. This is what we do on a routine basis. This is no special procedures, this is what we do almost every day. So I'm waiting for my lineman there, you can see the hose, to get in. We were able to save a father and his 4-year-old daughter from the back of the house. And as you can see, it's like everything destroyed in the living room. And trust me, if this ever happens to you in your house, this is the worst thing that can happen to you. For us, this is daily work. And these are the incidents that make us go, wow. Typical, beautiful Amsterdam canal house on fire. 3 stories, and if you look closely, you can see there's quite a bit of material standing there. This takes a bit more organization than the small fire you saw before. Makes us go, wow, and as you can see, it makes great pictures. So, in this moment that we drive to this incident, if we go on our way, in these 4 minutes that we are going to the incident, what are we thinking about? What is the sources of information we think about? What are the things we have in our head? It's completely disorganized. And not only are all the things we have to think about disorganized, we might as well look like this. It's in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock. This is a photo project made for the existence of my fire station. So you can see the little activator for the flashlight. So we had photo cameras in every sleeping room, and then whenever the alarm would sound, it would just go like a stroboscope, blink, and create crazy pictures like this. And this is the information environment. This is actually the desk of my chief, and we can make a puzzle out of it, but if you look closely, you can find about 10 sources of information. So I'm not going to do that with you. This is 7 prominent ones. As you can see, we have unified user interfaces. It all looks the same. It's all clear what it is for. And we have books. We have more than 1 meter of books in our fire trucks. just paper we have to flip through. So we have all the things we have to think about. We have the fact that we are in the middle of the night, have to get out. Crumpy environment, a lot of different interfaces, and dit is the environment we have to work in. Getting there. Well, it's not really there. No clue how to put the volume up though. This even works better. So you can see pretty narrow streets where you have to navigate through, and then bumpy roads, and I have to interact with all this information. And the horn you hear overhead is about 120 decibels. That's really disturbing if you're trying to concentrate on getting information. The only problem is we try to go with lower volume on the fire trucks, but then suddenly cyclists and other tourists start running in front of a fire truck, so the 120 decibel is so intimidating that people will literally stay out of the way. So we have this environment where we have to process all this information. And you would actually think that this is done in a good way, but the problem is that a lot of the tools we have are giving answers to questions we didn't ask. That might need some explanation. Navigation systems. Everybody thinks, hey, fire department navigation, good idea. As a firefighter, if I get an alarm, I want to know where I need to go. This system tells me what my next step is. Turn left after 30 meters. If after 30 meters there is no way for me to turn left, a market, busy street, parade, somebody's moving, whatever, I'm lost. I have no idea where to go. So what I can do, I can drive straight, and then the system probably will tell me, turn around, if possible, turn around, and then try to put me right in the street which I just passed. I have no way where to go. And the problem is, you can't wait either. Fire departments do very badly with the excuse, sorry, traffic was busy. That doesn't really work for us. And Frankhouse, it's in my service area. If you ever visited Amsterdam, you probably have been there, and otherwise, it's a very interesting museum. And it's a maze. It's a complete maze. It's a nightmare to go through if there is an incident. So what do? We create plans. The paper plans. This is one of those plans in this book. This is 1 out of 7 pages of that plan. So if you ask a firefighter, what do you want to know about that building? They say, everything. Well, here you got it, everything. There is so much information on it that it's really hard for me to filter out what's important for me. Because what is important for me are the greatest dangers. Because as sobering as it might sound, I only care to go home safe the next morning and my colleagues to go home safe the next morning. That bystanders don't get injured. And if in the process we can rescue people, that's an extra benefit. As heroic as we might see, we care most about our own lives. So I mostly care about what's really dangerous for my work there. And if I look closely, I find something which says, it's all in Dutch, so don't bother translating, zeer complex gebouw, very complex building. And then I suddenly think, okay, we have another book. And in another book, we have a procedure for a complex building. These plans are made up front, refreshed once every 3 years. Does that work? Well, we have to deal with something, and that something is reality. We have to work in the real world. How does reality look? This is reality. The biggest chemical fire to date in the Netherlands, a chemical storage company with a beautiful tagline, we know how to deal your chemicals. They probably won't use this as an advertisement. So this went completely out of hand. Afterwards, the fire department who had to deal with it made a great movie about the flow of the incident, and there's one very interesting aspect in that movie. The first arriving officer says in that movie, I got out of my truck, I looked at the situation, and then I noticed that everything we ever planned, all the plans, procedures, scenarios, all the training we ever did could go directly in the garbage bin. Because what I saw didn't meet anything we ever expected. So what is so strange in this picture? This yellow container. This yellow container is completely filled with acetone. And if you take a firefighter, show him this picture and say that's acetone, he gets a bit nervous. They had no permit, they had no, in other words, this container was not supposed to be there. But when the first arriving officer came there, he just had to deal with the fact that although it was never mentioned in the plan, this thing was there. So they had an enormous dilemma, because it was a chemical fire, and this container of acetone was about to blow up. So you want to cool that, but you don't fight chemical fires with water, you fight them with foam. Foam insulates. So it was an enormous dilemma how they were going to deal with that. So what they decided to do, we're going to cool the container, let the complete place burn off completely. But it prevented at least the container from exploding and putting all the chemicals wherever they could go. So this showed that even all the planning and training you do actually doesn't prepare you for the situation you're facing. So what should we do? More extreme plans? Should we go really to the extreme? Should we do stuff like this? Probably not, right? Or should we? Up there is a Skoda Octavia in a church roof. So you can see the fire department had to take a ladder engine to go to a car accident. It never happened to me in my almost 16 years of experience. They had quite some ingenuity to get this guy out. So they used a ladder to stabilize the people, to get all the gear up there. The guy was stuck there for about 2 hours. And when I started thinking about all the strange incidents I've been to, I thought about a book I've been reading, The Black Swan Theory, The Impact of the Highly Improbable. And this book goes about that we actually try to plan and think about things we can't predict anyway. Because there will always be things that affect the situation we are in we never thought of. And he describes in this book ideas on, for example, Fukushima, this disaster there. Nobody ever thought of a nuclear power plant hit by an earthquake, a tsunami, flooding, and a power outage in the backland. And it happened. We all seen the news how bad it went. And suddenly in Europe we started to check if the nuclear power plants were able to withstand all those 4 things as well. The Second World War, actually the invention of the internet is a black swan as well. Nobody could predict that. Nobody could predict the enormous boom internet business would make. 17 years ago when I started my business, I created an email account and everybody was like, what do you need an email address for? And now it's outdated already. If you don't have a Twitter handle, you don't exist anymore. So if we want to change, by the way, this black swan idea came from the fact that I started categorizing animals at some point and said a big white bird is a swan. The swan is a big white bird. They started sailing the world, came to Oceania where only black swans existed originally, found a black swan or a black bird and said it can't be a swan. It's not white, doesn't exist, it's impossible. They took the poor animal apart and then they figured, it's probably a swan anyway. So they had to recategorize everything. So with black swan events like Fukushima, we go reassess what we did in the past and create new plans and procedures just to be surprised by the next big event anyway. So what should we do? We should change the mindset in which we work with information. We should change the mindset how we deal with information during incidents. And I'm not telling here that we can kill this black swan. This black swan will always be there. We should be more aware of the fact that things that we never predicted will happen. Too many times you see fire departments extremely confident because they have a book full of or a shelf full of plans. We're prepared, let it happen. And then when things like that happen, they're completely blown away by what actually is coming there. There's also not an overnight solution. Although my company sells some software to assist in collecting information, I'm not telling you that the black swan is not going to happen anymore, and I'm not telling you that I can give you all the information you need, but at least I can help you get there and think about it. And another thing in this whole process, what really surprised me, is that if we talk about information management, especially in fire departments, we're not agile, while our operations are extremely agile. The firefighters that arrived at the church looked at that, had never seen it before, and tackled the problem. There is not a single fire department in the modern Western world who would came up to the church and like, nah, not for us. Good luck. So we are able in our operations to say, okay, we take one step, assess the output of that step, and get back, justify if it works or not, and then take the second step. While if we talk about information management in general in fire departments, we make 10 years plans on how we're going to build up structures. And we have to go from this closed world thinking, that's a semantic web term, to open world thinking. And what I mean by that is that I see a lot of fire departments say, okay, we only trust the information we created ourselves. So we're going to only trust the information in the plan we created. Although most of the times those plans are incorrect. And anything that comes from outside, we don't trust. We have to change that. There is so much information out there. We have to start using that. Sensible, but we have to start using that. To give you an example, this is a collection of all the data sets we think we have available within the fire department. It's an assumption. So this is what we could use operational. It's probably not completely readable, and I think the larger part is in Dutch anyway. But if you look in the open world, what's out there? A data portal for the government. There is a lot of information from the Dutch government available in data sets which we can use. For example, the Building and Address Administration of the Netherlands. This is just open data. It's a lot. It's about 40 gigabytes if you put it in a database. But it can give you for every single building in the Netherlands. It can give you the polygon of how it looks, all the addresses, the type of users, the building years, etc., square meters. It's a wealth of information in there. Chamber of Commerce data. Some guy was really smart and scraped this. Chamber of Commerce is not completely happy with it, but it works and it's really up to date. So from an address, we basically can query what kind of companies are there. And we can get the type of businesses as well. So we could actually see, if we mesh up data, if a business is actually registered in a living quarter and doing some sort of stuff which actually should not be done in living quarters. We're not enforcing it, but if we go there, we would like to know that it's possible. And obviously, if you talk about sharing information, you have to do something about the terminology. The cool thing is that a complete Dutch law is available online and also in structured data, so that we can actually pinpoint the terminology we use and how we combine stuff. And the linked open data cloud. There's even information in the linked open data cloud which is interesting for us. For example, all the monuments, the monumental buildings in the city of Amsterdam, you can find there. So you can actually find something about the construction in that cloud. Although not really trustworthy, but it is there. So what is it that I want? What I actually want is in these 4 minutes that I go to this incident, that I have a structured set of information, things logically connected, and using semantic web technologies to help me make assumptions about this information, which can help me a bit further, instead of this wild cloud of just ideas. So I talked about agility. So instead of boiling the ocean, we decided, okay, let's start with that what hurts most. Let's get rid of this navigation system. This was the only form of digital communication we had in the fire truck. As you can see, it's a bit cryptic. It's a little screen at the top of the fire truck which gives literally a tweet, because it's not more than 140 characters. So we can only tweet to fire trucks, get the information out. So you have to read this full screen in this bumpy fire truck and hope that you can get all the information out of that what you need, and then start thinking about procedures and plans, etc., etc. So what we actually wanted, this is in the back of at the back of the fire truck. So we have this LED screen where the messages come in scrolling, and we wanted to have a screen underneath where we could basically see this is the fire station, this is where we need to go, and some of the extra information. This is it. So in this relative tranquility we have in the fire station before we race out, in these 10 seconds while I'll put on my boots and raise up my pants, I have 10 seconds to look at the screen. So it's the same incident. This is my fire station. That's the Anne Frank house. As you can see, fairly straight road. 55 seconds on average, we are there. And then we have to go over the 7-page plan, go through the books, look up the procedures, get my gear on, put my helmet on, turn on the radios. Stress, as you can imagine. Underneath, you can see all the entities fully written out, not the acronyms anymore, but full written out words, so that even in the middle of the night, I have a clear thing of what I wanted to see. The funny thing is, if you talk about this with IT experts, they go, oh, we can put this on the map and we could put that on the map. The average firefighter will tell you, it's enough. This is all I can absorb in this 10 seconds with my sleepy eyes, and it's all I want. And the good thing is that the driver can actually take a plan B road as well. So if he looks at this screen and he finds that his main route is blocked, he knows essentially where to go. We still have the navigation system, but most of the times it's turned off. So we have this now at 20 fire stations in Amsterdam, and some other fire stations in the Netherlands, and 2 in Switzerland use it as well, so we're building this out. So then we thought about the next plan. Plans. We have 320 plans for special objects. Hospitals, musea, elderly homes, chemical plants, some oil storage in the harbor, etc. Then we have about 2,200 known objects. They have registered automated alarms like the ones you see up here. So when the smoke detector goes off, then the fire department comes automatically. About 2,200 of them. But in the full service area, we have 620,000 objects we need to service. And we know nothing about the larger part. Nothing is known. The only good thing is that basically everything from what we call serviceable objects, what you see in the streets, also small boxes from telco companies. So what's left over is about 500,000 objects for which we have no clue what it is. So we decided to go for the 500,000 plans plan. What if we could use open data to create real-time plans of all the buildings we go to? Don't create a big data center where we do the calculation every day or something, because we have no idea on the interval changes of the interval of changes. And it takes enormous processing power to keep doing that concurrently if we attach more information. The thing is, we don't have budget to put people on those plans. The 320 plans out of previous slides is just before regulations that they say your fire department should create a plan for a company which meets certain criteria, or hospitals, or a lot of chemicals. So then we started to think about, okay, how are we going to store this information? What kind of technologies we're going to use with this information? So then we decided to go for semantic web technologies, or basically RDF. So why did we choose for RDF? Well, first of all, we had no clear overall picture of what we wanted to store. RDF really is a flexible model, and it allows very much for agile development. In the 3 years that we're developing this, we have found that it was really easy to extend the model to add data and still have old systems using the original data as well without any problems. We wanted to be able to point to external data. We wanted to be able to point to external linked data. So not curate everything ourselves. Don't create this massive warehouse, but see if we could use information externally. And we are certainly keen about open data. We want to open all the data we produce as well. So RDF is the most suitable format for that as well, to put in the linked open data cloud. And very soon we are going to use web technology. That's the only way to go. And of course, RDF is a W3C recommendation. We started to use some vocabularies. I didn't put too many bullet points in this presentation. So in the presentation on SlideShare, you can find some vocabularies we use with links to them so that you can give an idea of what we wanted to do. And one of the very first things we figured out is we're going to let computers decide stuff for us. We need some centralized terminology. So I stole this idea of a brary from skybrary.arrow. I said, okay, we need firebrary. This is not really active yet. The domain is registered. You see the same thing. But I'm trying to convince the fire departments in the Netherlands and maybe somewhere else as well that we need this authoritative set of fire department terms. Because if we as firefighters among each other do not agree on the terminology we use, what should other people think? And it's actually really, really dangerous. So we started put some of the data we have in this fiber area, although it's covered up right now, to use it for mapping information sets. And we were able to do all sorts of interesting things in pilot. So this is the same screen, but now what we were able to do, to use some standardized terminology, is get all the hazards, but also from all the underlying procedure plans on a screen in the fire station. So we're trying to evaluate if showing these primary hazards in the fire station already raises the awareness of those hazards at special occasions. It's still in tryout version right now. Oh. One of the other things we're doing, the open data set for the government, so we can draw polygons, we can find alternative usage functions of the buildings. I just said 10 minutes, or not?
I just try and finish off because you're running over time.
Okay. Alternative addresses, which is in the city center of Amsterdam, really handy, because you have all those buildings which go from canal to canal. You can actually send your second fire truck to there. The alternative usage function, so actually the Anne Frank house has people living in it, in the same structure as the Anne Frank house people live. Although on the side, completely disconnected from the museum, but it's still the same building. Then I'll skip this one. This is the overview of the system we've built, where GMS is the communication system of the dispatch, and there we have all sorts of agents fetching information, and everything else is HTML5 applications. Another thing which I put in the proposal, but unfortunately it's still in the works, it stays a government organization, is a linked data fire truck. So what we set out to is new fire trucks we're going to buy, going to stream out open data. Now why do you want to do that? First of all, if you claim that you need open data, why don't you produce it yourself? But for example, if you have a chemical incident like this, the wastewater is an enormous problem. The environmental damage of this fire was enormous. And they couldn't do anything about it because they had, at the time when the fire was running, no idea how much water the fire department was actually putting on the fire. What we did now, we have one fire truck, it's going to be delivered this week, which has flow meters, so we can see real time how much water goes through the engine. If all your fire engines in an incident like this would stream out this information, you could actually see from a larger scale how much water is being used, and you can make some assessment about the environmental damage. What they could have done in this occasion, there was a polder, as we call it in the Netherlands, available, which they could have flooded with the wastewater, and then could leave the water there and then later decide how to clean the water off. What they did now, because they had no idea if it's 1 million, 2 million, 20 million liters of water, they just flushed it out to sea. Now you get all the discussion if this company has to pay for environmental damage. So, a lot of things are going on. How's my fear? I'm still afraid that I will run into situations where he could have known much more. The good thing is that the whole fire department, and even on a national scale, people start to think about, we have to do something with this enormous flood of information which is out there. We have to make sure that the firefighters are safer, raise their awareness, not only situational awareness, but also information awareness. There could be information out there that could make life safer. The goals are to see if we can do on a national and maybe international level, help standardize, and that's also the reason that I'm here, because there's a W3C group emerging for standardization on how to interact with information. This is something we have to think about. It's completely new way of interacting with information for firefighters. Let it be more dynamic. And it takes time. It takes time for people in the fire department to be aware of the fact that there's information. And more specifically, we have to start doing that on small scale. If we do as we do now, just have the plans for the large scale incidents, and then just give them this information only at large scale incidents, people don't know what to do with it. I always say my ideal is a cat in the tree scenario on an iPad or something. That's over-exaggerated, obviously. But if we start to learn and use and trust and think about information on very small scales, if we run into disasters, we can deal with it as well. Now it's something we do not do. So if you want to follow me, this is my Twitter handle. This is also the name on SlideShare you can use to look up the slides of today. They're already up there. There was obviously one question in this room. How did this guy end up there? This is in the east of Germany. Highways without speed limits. He took a ramp with 170 kilometers an hour, missed a turn, launched himself 35 meters through the air, ended up 10 meters high, about 10 meters high in a church. Was stuck for 2 hours, made it out alive, and I have no clue if the guy still lives, but it seems that he survived the accident, at least. Thank you for your attention.